Hello, welcome to Endpoint Backup inside of backup.net. Let's get started with deployment. First, we want to make sure that we have some organizations paired. Pairing is done through the integration section. IT Glue or any of the PSAs will pull over all the organizations that are set up within those products. If you don't want to set up integration, you can just go to the organization section and add one organization at a minimum. Next, we're going to go to the policy management section. We start by creating a policy. Let's call this Road Warriors. Let's say we have a handful of folks that are on laptops. They are remote workers, and we want some basic settings in this policy to support that type of system. I only need 90 days of retention for these, but there are multiple options to choose from. The schedule is whatever you determine. So a continuous interval from every 1 hour to once a day. Business hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., or build a custom schedule. For these Road Warriors, I'm going to do, let's say, every 6 hours. Ideally, we'll try to get 4 backups a day if those systems are online. Next is throttling. Now, since these folks are remote, it's important to throttle these. I'll set all of these systems to a continuous 5 meg per second throttle. However, this could also follow the same business hours logic, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., or I could specify a custom throttling schedule. We have alerting threshold overrides here. So there's a global threshold within Backup IQ for when we send an alert that a backup has not been performed. The option here is to override that global threshold and alert based on this policy's threshold. So since these guys are Road Warriors, if I don't have a backup in 5 days, I want a ticket in my PSA. And in that PSA configuration, it can auto close that ticket if, let's say, on day 5 and 4 hours in, we get a successful backup, it'll automatically close that. If this was a critical server, I would set that threshold much lower than 5 days. But for these guys, we'll set it to 5 days. And selective backup. So let's say all I care about is the user folders on this system. I throw C:\users in the includes, and I will only get that folder. Perhaps I don't want drive D, or I don't ever intend on doing a bare metal restore or a virtual disk export of this system that I would want to be bootable, in which case, if this is a bunch of laptops and I won't be BMRing those, you could add a whole series of excludes for the Windows system files, for example. If this is 500 laptops and you'll never BMR any of those laptops, you probably don't need 500 copies of Windows sitting in our cloud for retention, so you could exclude Windows. But if you do not exclude Windows, then we can perform a BMR of these systems, we can do a virtual disk export, and coming soon you'll be able to add DRAS to these systems and boot them in the cloud. For the purposes of this, I'm not going to choose any selective backup. All volumes will get backed up, all contents will get backed up. So I now have a policy, and it is this Road Warrior every 6 hours. Let's jump to deployment tokens. The next step is getting this installed and paired. So we're going to create a new deployment token. What organization are we deploying at? So if you set up your PSA integrations or IT Glue, all the orgs are already synced. If you added one manually, pick it from this list. I'm going to add this to our internal org. This is going to go to the US East location. I want the Kaseya 365 license, and we're going to pick that Road Warrior policy that we created just a second ago. All set. So let's jump over to a VM and get it paired. I already have the installer on the desktop here. Let me jump back over. The download link is right here. It's also in the KB article, small little MSI package. Important to note that all of the backup data, both in flight and at rest, is always encrypted. If you do not specify an encryption key, we will encrypt with a Kaseya Datto managed key. If you want to bring your own key, now is the time to do it. You cannot change it once you set it here. So enter that passphrase and it will maintain your own encryption key for these backups. If you lose that key, Support cannot help you recover it. That key will be required for any type of restore. To make things easy, I'm going to go with a Datto manage key. Okay, so the agent's deployed and I have a tray icon that has an ID. So I'm going to click on that ID, which will copy it to the clipboard. And then I will jump back over to UniView. And I've got the Roid Warrior policy set up. We're going to add that agent code to pair. So we'll paste this in, hit pair, and it will pair it right into the asset dashboard. Next, let's look at deploying through RMM. I'm going to use Datto RMM, and I'm going to copy the token. Let's jump over to Datto RMM. First, I want to grab that component. So I can see right here, Endpoint Backup v2 is published very recently from as of the time of this recording, and I'm going to add this comp store component. Done. Now, if you want to search for it, it's Datto Endpoint Backup Agent v2 for Windows. Next, let's go over to my sites. This is the system I have set up to demo this. We're going to do a quick job. Now I can run this on a whole bunch of machines or just a single machine. Again, since the deployment tokens are done by org, think of orgs similar to how sites are determined here. We're going to do a quick job. Search for that comp store component and Endpoint Backup v2. There it is. So I already know it's going to work, so I'm not worried about validating. I'm going to install. Going to paste in that registration key that I got when I clicked on this little copy token. Again, same warning and message about encryption. You can specify an encryption key at this time if you do wish to manage your own key. Leaving this blank means your data is still encrypted, but Datto manages the key. I'll hit run here. Very shortly, this job will complete. It will automatically pair that system and jump over into the portal. It will show up here in my asset list. So it makes it very simple to deploy a single agent or thousands of agents across the same policy. You can get as granular as what you want with policies. Deployment tokens are per organization. Remember, once you pick a data center, you cannot change that data center. All the data going to that data center will forever go to that data center unless you delete those agents and redeploy the agent fresh with a new data center through new deployment tokens. We cannot move agents from one data center to another while maintaining retention. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please reach out to support@datto.com.